The WNBA Finals were supposed to be a showcase of everything women's basketball could be. High drama, elite talent, sold-out arenas, and a crescendo to a historic season. Instead, it became a quiet, uncomfortable reminder that without Caitlin Clark, there is no pulse. When A'ja Wilson and DeWanna Bonner walked into half-empty arenas with ticket selling starting from $6, the realization hit harder than any playoff screen. This wasn't a championship celebration. It was a reminder that without Caitlin Clark, there is no WNBA. What should have been the league's most glamorous moment quickly turned awkward. The camera crews couldn't hide the glaring patches of empty red seats, the echoing dribble of the ball bouncing through silence, and the uneasy faces of players who suddenly understood that the crowd, the noise, the energy, the momentum, had disappeared with Clark and the Fever's exit. WNBA is in a panic right now. The WNBA higher-ups are panicking. They don't know what's going to happen. I already let y'all know I showed y'all the numbers that they was concerned about the playoff ratings and what they will be for the networks. They're concerned about it already. No Caitlin Clark here to carry everybody. They don't know how these numbers are going to look. Tickets are they're already doing Black Friday sales for playoff tickets. There are teams already doing Black Friday sales for A'ja Wilson and DeWanna Bonner. It was humiliating. These were supposed to be the self-proclaimed queens of the WNBA, carrying the banner for women's sports. But instead of roaring crowds, they were greeted by polite golf claps and yawning sections of unsold seats. The frustration was visible. During warm-ups, cameras caught A'ja shaking her head, muttering under her breath, "This is the finals?" It wasn't arrogance, it was disbelief. Meanwhile, Bonner tried to keep her game face, but post-game interviews told the story. "You work your whole life for this," she said, her voice tight. "You want to feel the energy, the love, the fans, but look around." She wasn't wrong. Even with championship banners hanging overhead, the arena felt hollow. The WNBA's biggest night had the vibe of a preseason scrimmage. If ever there was proof that the Caitlin Clark fans/Fever fans are now the overwhelming majority of the fandom. Look at ticket prices for finals games. On paper, this finals matchup had everything. Reigning MVPs, established stars, playoff storylines. But without the Indiana Fever and Caitlin Clark, it all fell flat. The buzz that had carried the league all summer had evaporated overnight. When fans checked Ticketmaster and saw prices dropping to single digits, $6 a seat, it confirmed what everyone already suspected. Nobody cared, so now everyone has to get their numbers on their own. We saw Caitlin Clark bring in a whopping 1.8 million viewers for her first playoff game versus the Connecticut Sun last season. That was more than all of the other playoff games that was played that day combined. More than all of the other playoff games played that day combined. A'ja Wilson, usually the picture of confidence, looked shaken. For years, she's been the face of the WNBA establishment, praised by media and marketed as the league's gold standard. But the harsh truth was unavoidable. Clark's departure from the playoffs exposed just how much of the league's newfound popularity revolved around her. Wilson's finals felt more like a reality check than a reward. Social media roasted the league within minutes. $6? That's not a finals ticket, that's a parking fee, one fan wrote. Another posted a video of the near-empty arena with the caption, "You chased away the star who filled every seat. Now enjoy the echo." It went viral in hours, picking up more views than the official WNBA Finals highlight reel. Last year, the cheapest ticket available to see the Indiana Fever at the Connecticut Sun in the first round of the 2024 WNBA playoffs, $133. Let's just say it's not near that expensive this year. It's not. So right there, Indiana Fever just had Caitlin Clark cut a WWE promo inside the locker rooms. Frustration turned to anger. Wilson and Bonner weren't just upset about attendance. They felt betrayed. The league had promised them growth, exposure, bigger crowds. But those crowds didn't come for them. They came for Caitlin Clark. She was the draw, the storyline, the phenomenon. Without her, the air went out of the balloon. It's like nobody's watching, Wilson admitted after Game 1, visibly deflated. And she was right. Ratings dropped nearly 50% from the semifinals that featured Clark and the Fever. Clips that used to dominate social media barely made the trending page. ESPN segments that once dissected every Clark assist were suddenly replaced by reruns of off-season NFL debates. The spotlight had moved, and the finals were stuck in the dark. Guys, if the Fever and Caitlin Clark was playing in a finals game, let's say against the Mercury, with all that drama around there, would there be a single ticket less than $300? Now, honestly, a single ticket less than $300. I don't think so. I think you'd have courtside seats go for $5,000. If Caitlin Clark was playing, if she was in the finals along with the Fever, Joanna Bonner's post-game comments hit even harder. "It's disrespectful," she snapped. "We play hard. We deserve packed arenas." The quote spread like wildfire. But while some sympathized, others called it karma. "You mocked the player who brought the fans," one viral reply read, "and now you're wondering where everyone went. The internet didn't pull punches, and neither did the fans." They remembered how all season long, veterans like A'ja Wilson and Cheryl Swoops had taken digs at Caitlin Clark, questioning her hype, dismissing her impact, even suggesting fans were only watching because she was white. Now, as Wilson and Bonner looked out over rows of empty seats, those same fans saw poetic justice. The players who spent months downplaying Clark's influence were learning firsthand what the league looked like without her. League officials tried damage control. WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert released a bland statement praising the competitive spirit of the finals. But no amount of PR spin could hide the problem. You can't call it growth when your championship tickets cost less than a movie ticket. The optics were devastating. For a league that had bragged about sellouts and record-breaking ratings all year, the finals turnout was a slap of reality. Even players from other teams couldn't help but notice. On social media, one anonymous WNBA player reportedly commented, "It's not the finals, it's open practice with nicer uniforms." That line quickly became a meme. Fans piled on, creating a storm of posts comparing Fever games to the finals. One split-screen image showed a packed Gainbridge Fieldhouse during a regular season Fever game next to a near-empty finals arena. The caption read, "You miss her yet?" Behind the scenes, tension brewed. Multiple insiders claimed that both A'ja and Bonner privately vented their anger toward the league's executives for the disastrous marketing rollout. They were furious that media coverage had cooled and blamed Engelbert's office for failing to sustain the momentum Clark had generated. But others in the organization whispered a different truth. The backlash wasn't about marketing. It was about ego. All year long, veterans like Wilson and Bonner resisted the idea that Caitlin Clark had changed the sport. They framed her popularity as temporary, a media-driven circus that would fade. They told fans to respect the pioneers and pay dues. Now, standing in half-filled arenas, they were living proof that it wasn't just hype. It was a movement, and they weren't the ones leading it. The frustration boiled over during the post-game press conference. When asked about the attendance, Wilson tried to stay composed. "We can only control what we do on the court," she said carefully before adding, "but we deserve more." Bonner wasn't as restrained. "You fight all year to get here and it feels like nobody cares," she snapped. The room fell silent. It was raw honesty, but it also exposed how deep the resentment ran. By the next morning, the clips had gone viral. Sports pundits dissected their comments, with most noting the irony that Wilson and Bonner, two of the most outspoken critics of Clark's media dominance, were now begging for attention. Stephen A. Smith even chimed in saying, "You can't chase away the person who built the house, then complain nobody's visiting." It was brutal, but accurate. The backlash was immediate. Memes flooded Twitter, showing photos of empty stands with captions like, $6 final special, buy one, bring everyone. Others photoshopped Wilson standing in an empty arena with the words, "Energy, never heard of her." Even ESPN's own SportsCenter account suddenly leaned into the narrative, posting a highlight of Clark's past Fever playoff game the same night as Game 2 of the finals. A reminder of who really moved the needle. By the time Game 2 rolled around, the situation had gone from embarrassing to catastrophic. The league tried handing out free tickets at local shops, but even that didn't fill the seats. The broadcast feed avoided wide shots entirely, sticking to tight angles that disguised the empty upper decks. But social media saw through it instantly. Fans uploaded panoramic videos of the barren arena, one caption reading, "The Finals, sponsored by Crickets." Even players with no direct stake in the feud started weighing in. Some called for unity, others quietly admitted what everyone could see. The finals simply lacked the spark Caitlin Clark brought. It was a rare moment of honesty that made Cathy Engelbert's job even harder. The commissioner tried her best to project calm, praising both teams' resilience and leadership, but her words landed with the weight of a deflated basketball. The half-empty stands told a different story. When Engelbert appeared for her pre-game press conference, the tension in the room was almost visible. She opened with canned optimism about historic growth and competitive excellence, but the faces staring back at her said it all. The media wasn't buying it, and neither were the fans watching from home. The first question landed like a punch. "Commissioner, how do you explain record-low attendance and declining fan engagement during the finals?" Engelbert froze, then forced a rehearsed smile. Her answer blamed scheduling conflicts and football season. The press wasn't fooled. The follow-up came fast. "Isn't this really about how the league mishandled Caitlin Clark's rise and alienated her fans?" That was the breaking point. Engelbert's expression hardened, her tone clipped. "This isn't about one player," she insisted. "We have incredible talent across the league." But the defensiveness in her voice spoke louder than her words. Within minutes, clips of the exchange were viral. The hashtag #FireEngelbert exploded across social media, turning the commissioner into the face of the WNBA's identity crisis. Fans were done being polite. A'ja Wilson and Dawana Bonner suddenly found themselves pulled back into the storm. Engelbert's tone made it sound like she was defending them instead of confronting the problem, and now they were taking the heat too. Even neutral sports analysts, people who had once backed Engelbert, were calling her comments tone-deaf. The divide between leadership and the league's new fanbase had never been clearer. Inside the arenas, the disconnect was impossible to hide. Cameras kept cutting to empty sections. Broadcasters avoided wide shots altogether. The few fans who did show up were subdued, their energy drowned out by the echo of unfilled seats. It didn't feel like a championship. It felt like a dress rehearsal for a show nobody wanted to see. Engelbert's press conference only deepened the wounds. Her refusal to acknowledge Clark's absence as a factor came across as arrogance, not authority. The headlines wrote themselves. Engelbert melts down. Empty seats, empty words, WNBA in crisis. It was no longer speculation. The league's leadership had lost control of the narrative. League officials scrambled to contain the fallout. PR teams drafted bland talking points, social media staff spammed highlight reels, and insiders tried to steer interviews away from the embarrassing attendance numbers. None of it worked. Fans flooded comment sections with side-by-side photos, packed fever games versus empty final seats. "You chased away your audience," one viral post read. "Now you're playing for yourselves?" Even younger players began speaking privately about the problem. Many were tired of watching veterans act like Clark's success was a threat, rather than a gift. One anonymously told reporters, "Caitlin helped everyone. We all got paid more, we all got attention. Why are people mad about that?" That quiet statement said it all. The divide wasn't just between fans and management. It was between the old guard and the new era. Engelbert tried to patch things up by holding an emergency meeting with representatives from both finals teams, urging them to focus on basketball, not narratives. But by then, the story had already escaped her control. ESPN, Fox, and even independent YouTube analysts were dissecting the meltdown, calling it the biggest PR collapse in league history. Meanwhile, the numbers told a brutal truth. Game 1's ratings were barely half of what the Fever's semifinal matchups had drawn. Analysts didn't bother spinning it. "Fans have spoken," one said on a national broadcast. "They care about stories, not slogans. And right now, the WNBA isn't telling a story anyone believes." Inside both locker rooms, players couldn't ignore the data. Lowest finals ratings in a decade blared across headlines. It was demoralizing. A'ja Wilson, who had spent her entire career trying to grow the league's audience, reportedly broke down privately. "We did everything right on the court," she told a friend, "but it still feels like nobody cares." Cathy Engelbert, desperate to regain control, held another media briefing. Once again, she tried to talk about positive growth and expanding opportunities. But the reporters weren't interested in buzzwords anymore. The first question cut straight to the point. Why are people tuning out? Her answer, "We're still in a great place," was almost tragic in its denial, because the truth was undeniable. Without Caitlin Clark, the finals were invisible. Every attempt to downplay that fact only made the league seem out of touch. Cameras panned over smiling players, but the wider shots betrayed the truth. Patches of empty seats, a quiet crowd, a championship with no pulse. Game 1 will be remembered not for its winner, but for what it exposed. The WNBA's leadership had spent months trying to prove it didn't need Clark to survive, only to discover that she was the only thing keeping the league thriving. Her presence had been the gravitational pull holding everything together. Once she was gone, the orbit collapsed. By the next morning, sports sites were merciless. Without Caitlin Clark, the WNBA's pulse flatlined, read one headline. Talk shows turned the finals into a case study in mismanagement. This isn't a basketball problem, a Fox analyst said. It's an ego problem. Fans agreed. They weren't mad at the players. They were mad at the arrogance that chased their favorite rookie away from the spotlight. On Reddit and X, petitions demanding Engelbert's resignation began circulating, gathering thousands of signatures overnight. The league forgot who brought us here, one post read. Now it's paying the price. Sponsors were watching too. Executives from major brands reportedly reached out privately, expressing concern about the optics. We invested in momentum, not controversy, one representative was quoted as saying. Networks started re-evaluating future broadcast commitments, unsure if the finals could deliver the kind of viewership Caitlin Clark had guaranteed all season. In a last-ditch effort, the WNBA's marketing department floated ideas for a fan appreciation campaign. But by that point, it was clear the issue went far deeper than marketing. This wasn't a branding problem, it was a credibility problem. Fans didn't trust the league's leadership anymore. They felt alienated by the players who mocked the very person who brought them into the fold. The finals had become the ultimate cautionary tale. Asia Wilson's anger, Tawana Bonner's disappointment, Engelbert's deflection, they weren't isolated incidents. They were warning signs of a league eating itself from the inside out. Because the reality was simple. Fans hadn't abandoned women's basketball. They'd abandoned the attitude surrounding it. They wanted joy, competition, and unity, not bitterness, politics, and pride. Caitlin Clark had given them a reason to care again. The league squandered it. By week's end, social media had settled on a new slogan. Kathy must go. It wasn't just a jab, it was a demand for accountability. Sponsors whispered about pulling support, networks trimmed coverage hours, and season ticket inquiries slowed to a crawl. The WNBA had dreamed of using these finals to cement its place in mainstream sports culture. Instead, it became a wake-up call. The league could no longer survive on pride or propaganda. It needed humility, honesty, and the courage to rebuild trust. As the lights dimmed on yet another half-empty arena, the message was clear. The WNBA didn't just lose viewership, it lost credibility. And until it learns to embrace the very player who made millions care again, every finals will look the same. A championship played in an echo chamber, begging for an audience that has already moved on.